We can cheer for her. Okay? The contest began, and Michelle cheered her heart out as Isla waited for her turn, standing tall with determination and a smile. And now, let's call our next contestant, Isla Maria Sanders, the host announced. Michelle shouted in support, lifting Jacob into her arms so he could see the stage and Isla could see them, too. This song is dedicated to my mama and papa, Isla began. It's their theme song. I remember mama used to cry whenever she heard it on the radio. Michelle teared up again as Isla spoke from the stage. She noticed her daughter looking around the crowd as if searching for someone. We're right here, Isla, Jacob shouted, raising his tiny hand. Isla spotted them and smiled brightly. Mama, she said into the mic, whenever you hear this song, I hope your tears are from happiness, not from pain or sadness. The audience was moved, especially Michelle, who couldn't hold back her tears. As the music started, and Isla began to sing, Gilbert, seated among the judges, froze. He knew that song, not just because it was popular. It was their song, his and Michelle's. Was it just coincidence? As the girl sang, Gilbert found himself lost in a whirlwind of memories. Moments when he held Michelle, kissed her, dreamed with her. He didn't realize Michelle was sitting right behind him in the crowd. You've got this, Isla, Jacob whispered from their seat. Isla smiled even more confidently as she sang. Michelle couldn't help but beam with pride and joy, crying silently as she watched her daughter sing the song that once defined her love story. She's amazing, Michelle. What a talented, well-raised child, someone nearby commented. Well, she takes after me, Michelle's father joked, and they all laughed. Isla finished her performance to thunderous applause. Even Gilbert couldn't believe how well she had delivered such an emotional song. The host announced the third and second place winners before continuing. And now to announce the grand prize winner. May we please welcome our Honorable Governor, Mr. Gilbert Joseph Ellison, to the stage. Michelle turned toward him, and her world stopped as she watched him slowly stand and walk toward the platform. And now the winner of today's singing contest is, the host paused, then turned to the crowd with a smile. Who's your bet? Who do you think won? Who touched your hearts the most? Isla! 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 The crowd chanted in unison. Everyone seemed to be in agreement. Even Isla's fellow townsfolk supported her wholeheartedly. And the winner is Isla Maria Sanders. The crowd erupted in cheers. Michelle jumped up, unable to contain her joy. Jacob, still in her arms, raised his hands in excitement. Even standing on stage, Isla couldn't stop smiling. Isla Maria, please come up and receive your prize, the host called out again. With joy glowing on her face, Isla stepped forward onto the stage. Gilbert, now standing beside her, looked around curiously as the little girl turned to the crowd. Mama, I won! Isla squealed, grinning from ear to ear. Gilbert's eyes swept across the audience, trying to spot who Isla was talking to. Then it happened, his gaze met Michelle's. She stood there, clutching Jacob in her arms. And just like that, time stopped for Gilbert. Michelle, he whispered, breath catching in his throat. He didn't realize Isla was watching him closely. You know my mama, Governor, she asked innocently, tilting her head. Gilbert bent down to meet her eye level. Is your mama's name Michelle Sanders? Yes, that's her. But how do you know my mama, Governor? Gilbert couldn't answer. He felt tears prick his eyes as the realization struck him. He had children, a son and a daughter, and they looked just like him. Isla Maria, please stay on stage, the host reminded her. Michelle, trembling, began to step back, but Jacob tugged at her. Mama, let's go up to Isla. She's waiting. Despite the panic in her chest, Michelle had no choice but to follow. She climbed up the stage with Jacob. We won, Mama! Jacob shouted, jumping up and hugging his sister. Michelle held them both, trying to smile through the emotions swirling inside her. The host, noting Michelle's presence, said, since Isla's mother is here, we'll ask Governor Gilbert to present the prize personally. Gilbert stepped forward but didn't hand over the prize immediately. Instead, he knelt again to talk to Isla. Other than the prize money, what else would you want to win from this contest? He asked. Isla looked at Michelle, then back at him. My papa, Governor. Even without the money, I just want to meet my papa. I just want him to come back to us, she said sweetly, clutching Jacob's hand. Michelle's heart dropped. Isla, she said softly, trying to stop her. Where is your papa, sweetheart? Gilbert asked gently, trying to keep his voice calm. He works far away, Governor. Can you help us find him? You're powerful, right? You can help us. Michelle quickly stepped forward, flustered. I'm so sorry, Governor. Please don't mind what she said. Gilbert handed over the prize envelope with a nod, offering a faint smile. They posed for a photo before stepping down from the stage. As they began to walk away, Gilbert's voice followed behind them. Michelle, can we talk? She didn't look back. What is there to talk about, Governor? Holding her children close, she kept walking away. Mama, maybe Governor can help us, Jacob said softly. He has lots of connections, right? That's what we see on TV. Michelle stopped in her tracks. She turned to face her children, her voice tight. Am I not enough for you? Is Mama not enough? The twins looked at each other, then quickly shook their heads. No, Mama, Isla answered. It's not that. We just don't want you to be sad anymore. That's why we want Papa back. Michelle turned away to hide her tears. She recalled the smiles Gilbert had shown the crowd earlier. He seemed fine. He seemed to be doing well, like he didn't need them. But then, and who told you I don't need you? Gilbert's voice broke through behind her. Governor, the twins shouted in unison, running toward him. They wrapped their arms around his waist, clinging to him. Gilbert looked down at them, his heart swelling as he stared into their innocent, smiling faces. They're mine, he thought. They're really mine. Overwhelmed by emotion, Gilbert couldn't stop the tears from falling. He looked up at Michelle, voice trembling. Tell me, Michelle, are they really mine? Michelle turned away, avoiding Gilbert's gaze. She had once told herself that if fate ever brought them together again, she would no longer run. She had promised she would fight for them. But now that they were here, face to face again, doubts crept in. What if he's married? What if he has a family now? What if he no longer needs us? So what if they are your children? She whispered. I'm the one who raised them. I gave birth to them. You weren't there. She didn't finish her sentence. Gilbert had already stepped forward and pulled her into a tight embrace. And so what if they're mine? He said quietly. Yes, you raised them. You carried them. But I created them with you. And if I had known, Michelle, I would have stood by them. I would have done everything for them. He pulled away just enough to cup her face with both hands. I need you in my life, Michelle. I need all three of you. You don't know what I went through after you left. When you disappeared from the mansion, it was like my whole world collapsed. I lost my will to live. But when I won the election, I realized people needed me. So I got up, fought harder, not just for them, but to find you. He embraced her again tightly, as though afraid she might vanish once more. I won't lose you again. Never. I'll make it up to you, to them, to all of you. Will Gilbert keep his promise, or will the past tear them apart again? Stay with Dark Voices to witness their journey, *. And just like that, Gilbert made good on his promise. The very next morning before sunrise, he arrived at Michelle's childhood home. Good morning, Mrs. Lena. Is Michelle here? He asked politely as her mother opened the door. Oh, Governor, it's you. Yes, she's inside cooking breakfast. Please come in. I'm sorry the house is a bit run down. We've been struggling ever since the last typhoon hit and never really recovered. No worries at all, Mom, Gilbert replied, glancing around. The small home had holes in the roof. Though humble, it was neat, but clearly not enough to protect them when it rained. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him. They had gone through hardship while he was unaware. "May I ask why you're here so early, Governor?" Mrs. Lena asked, curious. "People might start talking, saying, 'My granddaughter only won yesterday because she's close to you.'" Gilbert smiled faintly. "No, ma'am. Your granddaughter won because she's talented. That has nothing to do with why I'm here." Mrs. Lena looked surprised. "Oh, then why?" "I came here to see Michelle. I'd like to speak with her if that's all right." She nodded and turned toward the kitchen. Michelle, busy cooking, frowned when she saw her mother walk in. "Mom, why are you here?" "Where's Dad?" "I told him I've got the kitchen covered. Your Uncle Manuel's outside. I came to say that you should go out for a bit. We'll finish breakfast here." "But why?" Michelle asked. "What's going on?" Her mother hesitated for a moment, then spoke clearly. "Governor Gilbert is here. He wants to see you. Go on." Michelle froze at the sound of his name. She hadn't expected him to come, and so early. When she walked into the living room, she found him standing there, glancing quietly around the house. She cleared her throat to get his attention. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Gilbert smiled when he saw her, and with just one smile, Michelle felt herself melting again. No matter how hard she tried to resist, she wasn't being coy. She just needed to be sure that what he was offering now was real. That he wouldn't hurt her. That he wouldn't walk away again. Because this time, it wouldn't just be her heart at stake. It would be her children's, too. "I told you yesterday, didn't I?" Gilbert said. "I'm here to make it up to you and to your parents for the time I wasn't around." He looked around again, scanning the space. "Where are the kids?" he asked. "They're still asleep," Michelle replied. "Can I see them?" Michelle hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, but before you do, there's something I want to ask you." They sat on a bamboo bench in the corner of the room, serious now. "Before I let you into their lives, I need to ask, do you have a girlfriend or a wife?" she asked, voice steady. Gilbert blinked, then chuckled softly. He had expected that question, but it still caught him off guard. "No, Michelle, I don't have a girlfriend, and I definitely don't have a wife. Between being governor and trying to find you, I never had time for anyone else. The only woman I've ever wanted as my wife is you." Michelle couldn't help but stand and turn away to hide her smile. "Come on, let's go see them," she said at last. Michelle walked ahead, leading Gilbert toward the twins' shared bedroom. When they entered, Isla and Jacob were still fast asleep, each in their own bed, but sharing the same room. "Come in," Michelle said softly. Gilbert stepped inside and slowly approached Jacob's bed. He sat down on its edge and stared at the boy's face. No matter how many times he looked, he could see his own features mirrored in his son. It was like staring at a smaller version of himself. "He looks exactly like you," Michelle whispered from behind. Gilbert turned slightly toward her. "That's what I said, too, when I first saw them. It was like looking in a mirror." Michelle pointed gently toward Isla. "She got your eyes and those long lashes, but the rest, that's all me. Look, she's totally my mini-me." Gilbert smiled faintly. Okay, I won't argue. Our little princess takes after her mom." Michelle didn't answer. She watched as Gilbert reached out and gently brushed the hair away from Jacob's forehead, then turned to do the same for Isla. "I'm sorry for not being there while you were growing up," he whispered to the twins. "I didn't know. I had no idea you even existed, but if I had, believe me, I never would have left you." Michelle stepped back, about to leave the room, when she heard a sleepy voice behind her. "Governor, what are you doing here? How did you know where we live?" It was Isla. She had woken up and was rubbing her eyes. Jacob stirred beside her. "I'm sorry if I woke you up," Gilbert said softly. "I was just visiting." "It's okay, Governor. Mommy always wakes us up around this time anyway," Isla replied, sitting up. "And what are you doing here?" Jacob asked groggily, looking from Michelle to Gilbert. Michelle knelt beside their beds and gently held their hands. "Remember yesterday you asked Governor Gilbert to help you find your father," she said gently. "And remember how you said that if you could only meet him, you wouldn't care about the prize money?" The twins nodded, suddenly alert. "Well," Michelle continued, her voice breaking just a little. "He's here. He found your father." Both children's eyes widened. Gilbert stood completely still, breath held, unsure of what Michelle would say next. Michelle looked up at him, then back at her children. "Kids, this is Governor Gilbert Joseph Ellison," she said softly. "He's your father." Isla blinked in surprise. Jacob's jaw dropped. Gilbert knelt beside them. "Yes, I'm your papa." "You're our papa?" the twins asked at the same time, stunned. Tears glistened in Gilbert's eyes as he nodded. "I am." "Papa," they shouted joyfully and threw their arms around him. Gilbert hugged them back tightly, burying his face between them as his emotions broke loose. "Yes, I'm your papa. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere again." Will this reunion heal old wounds, or will new challenges arise? Keep watching Dark Voices to find out. From that moment, Gilbert began visiting their humble home every day. He spent time not only with the twins but with Michelle's family, too, building bonds and reconnecting. "This town is so lively," Gilbert commented one day as he sat outside with Michelle and her parents. "It's small, but full of warmth." Michelle smiled. "And the air is fresh. It's peaceful." "Mrs. Lena, Mr. Samuel," Gilbert said, turning toward Michelle's parents. "I'd like to ask your permission for something." "What is it, son?" her father asked. "I'd like to bring Michelle and the kids to the city. I want to introduce them to my family. Not as former house staff, but as the people I love. After that, I plan to propose. I want us to become a real family." Her father nodded slowly. "That's fine with us. You don't need our permission anymore. You've already won our trust. All that's missing is the wedding. And if your mother doesn't approve again," Michelle's father added sternly, "I won't stand by while my daughter and grandchildren are hurt. If she opposes you again, I'll take them back." "She won't," Gilbert assured him. "Even if she does, it won't matter. I'm going to marry Michelle. No one can stop that now." Unbeknownst to him, Michelle had been listening from a distance. She walked up with a quiet smile. "We're already packed," she said softly. Gilbert turned to her, surprised. "You are? I heard you and Dad talking. That's why I packed up. When are we leaving?" "As soon as you're ready," he said, beaming. For the first time in years, Michelle felt ready to face the world and the people who once stood between them. That very same day, they traveled back to the city. Instead of going straight to the mansion, Gilbert brought Michelle and the children to one of the hotels he owned so they could rest. "Wow, this place is huge," Jacob exclaimed, still in awe as he looked around the lobby. "Whose house is this, Papa?" he asked. Gilbert chuckled. "It's not a house, son. It's a hotel. But yes, it's mine, and one day it will be yours." Jacob's eyes sparkled. "Really, Papa? You mean it?" Gilbert nodded. "Yes, it'll all be yours when you grow up." "What about me, Papa?" Isla chimed in. "Where will I work?" "You'll help manage the beach resort or the company, wherever you want to be." "I want to work at the beach resort," Isla said with glee. "I want to help the people who visit. I want to see the beach every day." "Beach, here I come." Gilbert and Michelle laughed at their daughter's enthusiasm. After settling in, they headed to the buffet hall to eat. "Wow, look at all the food, Mama!" Isla shouted. "There's even roasted pork. I finally get to try it." Michelle smiled warmly. "Go ahead and eat well, sweetheart. Sorry Mama couldn't serve you food like this before." "It's okay, Mama. You gave us fried chicken. That's my favorite anyway." Michelle gently pinched her daughter's cheek. "You're so easy to please." I admire how content you both are, Gilbert said to the twins. But now that I'm here, I'll make sure you get to try everything. I'll fill our table with food. They all sat down together at one table, eating and talking as a family. Gilbert couldn't stop glancing at Michelle and the twins, feeling joy swell in his chest. I didn't choose wrong, he thought. I didn't choose the wrong woman to love. Once they'd eaten and rested, they all headed to the Escalante mansion. As they walked toward the main door, Gilbert noticed Michelle growing pale. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I'm nervous, but I can handle it. Don't worry. I'm here, he reassured her. I won't let anything happen. Inside the mansion, the staff warmly welcomed them, especially Miss Diane, who greeted them with open arms. I missed you, sweetheart. I'm so glad you came back, she said as she hugged Michelle. She glanced at Gilbert, standing proudly beside them. So, the two of you are back together. That's good. She leaned toward Michelle and whispered, looks like you're going to fulfill that promise you made me. You fought for your love after all. Michelle just smiled and shook her head, laughing softly. Then she hugged Miss Diane tighter. I missed you, too. Miss Diane looked down and noticed the twins, wide-eyed and quiet. And who are these little ones? They're our children, Michelle answered directly. Miss Diane gasped and looked at Gilbert, who simply nodded with a smile. Oh my goodness, Miss Diane said, her face lighting up. I'm so happy for you both. They stepped inside, but Michelle was startled to find Madame Cynthia sitting in a wheelchair in the living room. What are you doing here? Cynthia asked coldly, her tone sharp. Gilbert stepped forward. Mom, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to her, Cynthia snapped, her eyes fixed on Michelle. Michelle lowered her gaze, about to ask what had happened to Madame Cynthia when Gilbert explained. She got into an accident a few years ago, he said quietly. It affected her legs, but she's undergoing therapy now, and she's slowly learning to walk again. Michelle nodded silently. Cynthia stared at her. What? Are you happy that this happened to me? Did you wish for this? Were you praying for something bad to happen to me just to get back at me? No, Michelle answered calmly. Not at all. I'm not that kind of person. I could never wish for harm to come to someone else, especially not to the mother of the man I love. Gilbert's eyes widened slightly at her words. Michelle stepped closer to Madame Cynthia. I respect you because your son loves you, and because I love him, I care about what happens to you. She took a deep breath. I can't pretend to forgive you right away. Not after everything, but I'll try. Everyone in the room went still. Cynthia's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? Michelle raised her head and met the woman's eyes. I love your son. Before, I stayed silent, but not anymore. I'm going to fight for what I feel, especially now that we have 2 children. Cynthia looked down at the kids standing between them. Children, she gasped. Michelle and Gilbert nodded. Yes, ma'am, Michelle said. There are children. Go greet your grandmother, Michelle whispered to them. The twins hesitated at first, then walked over together. Just as they were about to take her hand to bless, Cynthia burst into laughter. You think I'll fall for that, she said. You really think I'll believe those kids are his? You're just trying to trap him. If you don't believe it, then you're free to request a DNA test, Michelle said calmly. Cynthia stared at the children, at the boy especially, and couldn't deny the resemblance. He looked so much like Gilbert. Still, Michelle didn't linger. I only came to tell you the truth. Come on, Jacob, Isla. But before they could leave, the twins stepped closer to Cynthia again. You'll get better soon, Grandma, Isla said sweetly, taking Cynthia's hands in her own. You'll be able to walk again. You'll even be able to play with us. Those words pierced through Cynthia's cold exterior like a warm breeze. Tears sprang to her eyes. My grandchildren, she whispered. My grandchildren. Michelle couldn't believe what she was seeing or hearing. I'm sorry, Cynthia said at last, her voice trembling. I'm sorry for turning you away before. It's okay, Mom, Michelle replied. I know it's not easy to forgive, but I'm willing to take things one step at a time. From that day on, Cynthia's treatment of Michelle changed. That night, instead of returning to the hotel, she let them sleep in the mansion. Over the next few days, the twins grew closer to their grandmother. Gilbert hugged Michelle from behind as they watched the children sleep in their bed. Who wouldn't be happy now that my mother has accepted you, he whispered. Michelle smiled, eyes full of peace. Can this newfound family overcome the shadows of the past? Stay tuned to Dark Voices for the heartwarming conclusion, Oh, by the way, Gilbert whispered from behind her, still hugging her closely as they watched their twins sleep peacefully. I forgot to ask you something. Michelle's brows furrowed slightly. What is it? When we saw each other again, why didn't you ask me why I left the mansion? Why didn't you confront me or get angry? Gilbert chuckled softly behind her. Why didn't I ask? Because I already knew why you left. I was upset. Because you didn't fight for me. I was ready to fight for you. But you left me. Still, I waited. I waited for the day you'd be ready, for the day you'd be brave enough to stay. Michelle let out a quiet laugh, bitter and soft. How could I fight for us when I was just a maid? And your mother didn't even want me around. So what if you were a maid? Gilbert asked. I loved you. Michelle didn't answer. She closed her eyes instead, sinking into the quiet. Wear something formal tomorrow, Gilbert said suddenly. She frowned. Why? You'll see. He didn't say anything more, and Michelle didn't press him for details. The next day, just as Gilbert had said, a car arrived to pick her up. She didn't know where it was taking her, but she followed the instructions and dressed formally. Where's Gilbert? She asked the assistant who accompanied her. He's already inside, ma'am. The children are with him. Let's go, the assistant said. He opened the door for her, revealing a private hall inside one of Gilbert's hotels. Michelle stepped in and immediately noticed how dim the room was. Why is it so dark in here? Did the power go out? She hadn't finished her thought when, one by one, soft lights flickered on, illuminating a path that led to the center platform. There stood Gilbert, dressed formally, with Isla and Jacob beside him. But what made Michelle stop in her tracks were the words glowing behind them in soft lights, "Will you marry me?" Michelle couldn't hold back her tears. And when she looked around the room, she was even more overwhelmed to see her relatives from the province, her mother, father, uncles, and aunts, all smiling and watching her from the side. Mommy, say yes. Isla shouted gleefully while Jacob jumped up and down beside her. Gilbert stepped forward and gently wiped the tears from Michelle's cheeks. I didn't bring you here to make you cry, he said, teasing gently. They're tears of joy, Michelle whispered. Gilbert knelt in front of her and took her hand. Will you marry me, Michelle? With a trembling smile, she nodded. Yes, I will marry you, Gilbert. The days flew by, and the long-awaited moment finally arrived, their wedding day. Michelle Marie Sanders, do you take Gilbert Joseph Ellison as your lawfully wedded husband? The officiating priest asked solemnly. I do, Michelle answered wholeheartedly, her voice steady and full of love. And with that, they sealed their vows with a warm, lingering kiss, the kind that spoke of trials overcome and promises fulfilled. A few days after the wedding, the entire Ellison family, along with the newly joined Sanders family, went on a vacation to Sargo. The trip was full of laughter, bonding, and new beginnings. There, the bond between the two families grew even stronger. Michelle sat quietly, watching Isla and Jacob run joyfully along the beach with Madame Cynthia, who now laughed freely in their company. Seeing them so close melted her heart. She couldn't stop smiling as she leaned gently against Gilbert. Thank you, she whispered in her thoughts. Thank you for bringing them together again. Thank you for giving her another chance at love. She never thought it would happen. When she walked away from the mansion all those years ago, she thought it was the end. But fate had different plans. Love brought them back together. And now the family they had once only dreamed of was finally real, whole, happy, and complete. The end. My name is Mr. Hope. See you next time on Dark Voices. Ciao.